So last year, for those of you who were able to attend last year, I did a presentation on a project that I had kind of coined the MyResearch Portal, which was my initial investigation into developing a sort of next generation catalog, something that is completely separate from our ILS that we can kind of develop and customize on our own. And so I just kind of wanted to take you through the steps of the things that we evaluated and looked at, and how we kind of went to an open source application called VuFind, and where we are today, and the lessons learned from going open source. So I just kind of want to share with you some of my experiences, and hopefully others will kind of learn about the difficulties, the challenges, or the successes of going with an open source project and producing one yourself. So initially our idea was to develop this resource discovery portal, kind of like some other things that you've been seeing from things like Library Find, or some of David Walker's stuff, some of the other open source Blacklight projects, and some of the other commercial products out there as well. We wanted to be able to produce an application that allows all of our users to go to one single location and get all of the library resources, whether they're records from the library catalog, whether they're article search resources, whether they're items from your digital library or your repository, other library catalogs, so I can't wait to be able to play with the WorldCat API, and so on and so forth, so that your users have one single place to get everything that they need to. Plus, it also helps to have one single interface. You don't have to have your librarians teaching, okay, this is what ProQuest looks like, this is what EBSCO looks like, this is how to search there, this is all the things that you need to know, because hopefully they'd be able to access it all through one interface. But we quickly realized that we're not the only library in the world with this problem. I think most people in this room are kind of facing the same sort of challenges or wants. I think we all kind of want this sort of similar solution. We've seen a lot of surveys being done, but it all concludes the same thing, and the things that we already know, that we're just not happy with our current solutions, and we need to be able to offer solutions out there that match what everybody else has, Amazon, Google Scholar. So maybe we can all work together. What do you think? Would that be good? I think it would be really cool if we could all work on it. We all have the same sort of goals. Maybe we're not all going to work on the exact same project, but we can really share components, share ideas, get together and build something that we'll all be really happy with. It will be a lot less expensive. So how do we go about doing something like this? Well, our first challenge was to work with the ILSs. We wanted to build a system that lets the catalog do what it's supposed to do and work on top of that. Build with those existing systems. So we wanted to be able to continue to work with the ILS systems. So we need to be able to interact with them. We use Voyager, Circe Dynix, III, Aleph. Those are kind of the big ones that you see in the academic libraries, some of our peer institutions that are using. And of course, we want to continue to work with our other OS open source cousins like Koha and Evergreen, and any other programs that might jump up out into the market. So we want to be able to make sure that it continue to work with all of these things all at the same time and share our resources. And as I said, we want to be able to make sure that we're using the ILS, let it do what it does best. Let it do the circulation and stuff like that. We're not set out to build another ILS or replace that. We just want to have the web application that our patrons use to be up to par as what we would consider. So what our goal is to build this underlying architecture that can continue to work with them. So we decided to take all of the bibliographic data that we can get from the library catalog, and we decided to start with the library catalog first. We felt that was our biggest challenge. We have a federated search product now that we can customize the interface so that we can all kind of mimic all of our things. We have our own digital library. We have some bibliographic tools on campus that we can customize now. The one thing that we can't customize is our OPAC, and so that's why we decided to start with that first. And so what we wanted to do with that first was to get all of the bibliographic data out of it, but leave the holdings information, because that's what changes frequently. We don't want to deal with that. We want to leave that in the ILS. And so we got all of the bibliographic data into our index, and my presentation last year was kind of the investigation of what technologies to use, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the technology of Lucene and Solr, and that's where we ended up. So all of the data gets indexed into a Lucene index that we can query really fast. We can put millions of documents into it without having any problems. And then what we want to do is we want to interact directly with the ILS to get the holdings information at a live status. I felt that having a cache, a delayed cache, was unacceptable. I could only imagine a patron who really needs to get an item, and it was checked out 15 minutes ago, and they lost it. But the other idea is that some catalogs do have a really good way of searching them, especially the open source products out there. Koha and Evergreen, we can interact with them directly. Some ILS products have a direct API to interact with their index directly. So some of the ILSs, we might not want to get the bibliographic data out. So the product also needs to be able to work with the ILS APIs of searching that are quick and responsive. So the architecture of this needs to be very modular based on what ILS system you're using, or if you're using multiple ILSs, or if you're using other resources, digital libraries. It needs to be able to be very fluid and flexible in order to interact with all of these different systems based on what they support and what they have. So we kind of came up with two separate concepts. One would be the searching component, and one would be the live status lookup component. And so each of them have a different driver architecture. So to get the live holdings information for each ILS we have is a separate driver. And that driver will interact with the ILS directly to get the status information. Things like the call number, the location, whether or not it's on reserves, things like that. Get all that information directly at that very exact moment. And then we also have another architecture to work with an index to do the searching. So VuFind, which is our product, comes prepackaged with a Solr index that you can import your data into. Right now we have a MARC importer, and I'm working on an OAI importer to get your digital library content into it. And so you'll be able to search the local index, or if you also want to search other components that have an index that can be searched really fast, there also needs to be that. So there's a driver that we begin to create for other systems as well. So I've begun to work with the folks from LibLime on developing a Koha driver, and what that will do is use its native index so that we're not exporting the records and then re-indexing them. We can use the existing index, and that cuts down on labor that the system has to do. This is kind of the architecture of how it's structured. So the idea is that it can interact with all different types of data sources based on what you want to do, and it has its own data sources built into it, packaged in with it. And then we have our templating system to customize the interface, because after all, that was one of our initial goals, is to be able to customize this interface. Another great benefit is if you were to ever consider switching ILSs, your patrons never need to know the difference. This allows you to totally abstract your front-end application from your ILS. So if you ever consider changing, all you have to do is change some configurations under the hood. Hopefully you won't have to re-index your data, but you might want to, and you should be up and running, and your patrons will never know the difference. The other idea is that it needs to also be installed easily on various platforms. So many people might have their ILS currently on a Solaris system or a Windows system or a Linux system. There's a wide variety of platforms out there. Some institutions might want to keep a homegrown system like this in the ILS server directly. They might want to separate it onto another server. So it needs to be compatible with any platform, and that's kind of one of the paths to adoption for such a piece of software. Is everybody uses all different sorts of platforms, so we can't just specify one. Otherwise, that really kind of limits your adoption. We need to be able to support all of them. So there's quite a few challenges in that, but by using software solutions, platform solutions that are very flexible, I think we can really achieve this very well. So because we all have the same problem, we all want to work together on this. The next step is let's take this open source. We really want to share this. One of our main goals with open sourcing this is to get other folks like you out there working with us and kind of going after the common goal and building a solution that we're really happy with. So our goal was to, from the outreach, from the outstart, is to build this community, and so that's kind of what we've been trying to do a little bit. We've been going after the local schools near us that are within driving distance that we can talk to and share with, and go over there and install it on their systems and see how it works with them and get their feedback, and then also building that online community where we can get schools nationwide, libraries nationwide to interact and work with it. So a local team, the University of Villanova University, we can build this software ourselves. We can get it up and running ourselves. We can do exactly what we need. But if we want to take it to a whole nother level, really we need other ideas, other input, and that's where building this online community will really take this to a whole nother level, I think. The other idea is that the director of academic affairs at the university, when he found out they were doing this, said, oh great, so can we sell this? Is this something we can make money off of? But Villanova University, a mid-sized school, is not in the marketplace to sell software, to support it, to go after this. And I think it's if it's something that other institutions are really interested in, it would be a shame just to keep it all on your own. So I really think that building the community is the approach to go. And when Jeremy and Terry were talking yesterday about LibraryFind, that's their big goal right now, is to build the community. And that's really the way to success of open source, is having a strong community. It supports sustainability of the project, and it really supports just a strong value behind the product. So the big step in that is to kind of get it out there into the open source community at large. There's two popular methods of doing that. You can go and use the free software out there like SourceForge or Google Code. There's plenty of others out there as well. Or you could kind of control it in-house with your own repository. But for our reasons, I think it made more sense to go with something like SourceForge. So you'll see VuFind is hosted on SourceForge now. And I didn't want to have to put my IT staff in the stresses of hosting these sort of things, and I didn't want to definitely do them myself. But you get a whole lot more freedom with being able to do that. There's a great product that you've probably heard of a couple of times mentioned so far, Track, which right now doesn't really work with external SVN repositories. I would love to be able to use some of these tools, but due to the limitations of having my repository off-site, it makes things more difficult. But SourceForge does have a strong suite of tools to help us build the community. They could definitely be better, but they're getting there. Google Code too is fairly new, and they're kind of growing in that sense. But kind of hosting it yourself, you can do a lot of really cool tools that are out there that will make things a little bit more easier to manage. So some of the positives of open sourcing, like I said, is being able to build a community. We've, I think, gotten pretty successful at that already. Our mailing list is becoming more and more active, and we're getting a lot of interest and some people that are really being able to start submitting patches and tweaks and modifications. We've had some major component rewrites already by other institutions, and that's been really, really helpful, especially from my perspective, considering this is only about 1/5 of my time. So, this is really a product that I could easily spend 40 hours a week on. But my boss won't let me do that. The other big thing is today, this conference, the idea sharing. People can say, oh, hey, did you think about this? Or, there's Blacklight and there's SolarPack, and we talked at ALA a couple months back, and we can say, oh, hey, did you think about this? And, we can really share ideas and transfer ideas for each product. Schools who want to implement this but might not have the technology staff but have the brain power to think about how to implement something like this can begin to share ideas and talk about how something like this can really be effective and a good approach. Plus, from my boss's perspective, it's bringing in attention to the university, and I think that's something that's kind of lending support in our house, because we're not doing this under grant funding. We're doing this directly out of our own library budget. So being able to bring in some attention to the university is kind of helping my boss say, okay, yes, let's do this, and his boss, the director of academic affairs, saying, yeah, this is a good thing to spend our own money on. And then if you're lucky, maybe you'll get a pay raise. Some of the negatives about open sourcing. I can't really say that open source has a whole lot of negatives, but there are. From an administrator's perspective of the community leader, you really want to build this community, and a strong community has a strong mailing list where people can get support, where people can interact and talk. And that requires some of your own time to be able to manage that, facilitate that, make sure that everything's happening and people aren't just posting question after question after question and there's no answer. If there's no answer, then people are going to leave. It's not going to be successful. So initially, you have to answer every single question, and that gets to be very busy, especially when this is only a portion of your time. And then, of course, getting the word out, too. I think I might have this on the next slide. The true success to an open source project is word of mouth transfer of what's going on. And so getting out there and sharing this project with everybody is an important step to do. It requires a bit of traveling and schmoozing, but so again, this is only 1/5 of my time, so it's very difficult to be able to manage all of that, especially when you're trying to focus as a developer, trying to focus on a project, and then being interrupted. That can be a very costly approach to programming or to development. The idea of project switching, it's a very expensive cost. If you're working on one project and then for an hour you're going to go work on another project, and then after that hour you're going to come back to another project, it can be very expensive. I'm running out of time. So lessons learned, again, get out there and market your project. There's a lot of open source projects out there, but the way to adoption is getting the ideas out there and sharing people and telling them how it works and how to implement it. Adoption requires very easy installation. Everybody's familiar with the WordPress 1-minute install. I've heard a ton of people talking about WordPress. I think one of the biggest reasons why WordPress is so popular is because of that 1-minute install. Yesterday we sat through some somewhat painful experience, but somewhat a good learning experience of how to install these open source applications. If we can get those 2-hour installs down to 20 minutes, I can only imagine what would happen to adoption. And it has to be backed up with a strong user interface and strong functionality. And I thank Chris Barr, our designer, for building an interface around there, because my crayon design is not going to help. And then the very last thing I want to talk about is just to have a roadmap. Plan out your ideas. I know we all try to follow an agile development method, and that methodology says that we can't really use dates. But give your community some ideas of what you're going to be doing from time to time, and that really helps with adoption and getting people interested. So I have a minute for questions. I went through the last slides really, really fast. So please feel free to ask any questions. And if anybody's interested in seeing VuFind software, feel free to get in touch with either me or Chris. We'd be happy to show it.